The following is a Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to the Powercat podcast, presented by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. It's the Powercat podcast. And now, let's go to the Spirit Street Studios. Here's your host, Go Powercat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to a special edition of the Powercat podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, your trusty host. I hope so. Riley Gates does not have a microphone, and we've kicked Zach Carlson out of the room because that's all fitting. Because we have three special guests with us today. Three former Kansas State football players here to talk about Bill Snyder, his retirement, which took place Sunday, and, of course, what is ahead for Kansas State football. And maybe we'll get into some fun stories. We're joined, of course, by Marcus Watts, our football analyst at Go Powercat, who was at Kansas State from 1932 to 2007.
That's correct.
That's correct. Roughly 2002 to 2007, because he did gray shirt first and then graduated college at age 72. He's been around a while. But Marcus is right in the middle because he was around for Bill Snyder's first retirement, then played, unfortunately, for Ron Prince. Also with us is another safety, Monte Spiller, who played at Kansas State in 93 and 97. So he was Snyder 1.0. And, of course, Travis Tannahill, Snyder 2.0, played from 09 to 2012. Welcome, guys. I think we were all expecting this today. Travis, I'm going to start with you. Still, it's surprising when it finally comes out. I mean, we had a story written, and it was still like, it actually happened. He actually retired again.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just like you said, it actually happened, and he, finally decided to step down, which we've kind of been. I mean, I honestly, going even back to my senior year, 2012, I was like, he might retire after this year. So literally since 2012 and on, it's kind of just been a yearly thing. And this year, obviously, the most pressure and probably the hardest or the loudest feelings coming out from the fan base and from everyone that this should maybe be the year. So it's still kind of, I don't know, see how I feel in the morning. But right now I'm still like, is he really done? Can he retract it in the morning? Because it's still just a weird feeling.
You just feel like you're going to wake up in the morning and he's going to send out a tweet for the first time in 3 years. I'm back.
Yeah, exactly.
Monty, you played for him back when his legs were fresh, so to speak, when the program was just building and really turned the corner. May I point out, it turned the corner the second you left. It got into 98. But
right.
You were here really during the glory years, that when the Bulls started, the really fun time when the fan base took off. How hard has it been to kind of see this winding down of the Snyder years instead of coming to maybe a nice ending after 2012 or even 13 or 14 and just kind of see the life come out of this?
Yeah, it's been difficult. We've been spoiled the last 20, 25 years, give or take, and the last couple of years, guys are competing still, but just not like the team of old. And it's one of those things where, as a fan and a former player, I try to bite my tongue, but sometimes it's frustrating, and you see things the average fan don't see, and you want the best for the current players and coach for that matter. But it's definitely frustrating.
Marcus, when we knew he was going to be retired or retire, put it that way, this was it for him. Still, until it was done, you kind of felt like Bill Snyder would dig in his heels so much he'd win that argument, and he didn't, and he's gone now. I mean, as a guy who was around the first time around when he retired, is this deja vu, or does this feel more final?
I mean, a lot of it, brings back so many emotions from the first time. The first time was completely out of the blue, unexpected. Nobody saw it coming. We were all in shock when he told us in the locker room that evening on that Monday night. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to expect. The good thing is they've been through this kind of, because with him and then with Prince, they've been through a coaching change inside the athletic department, so they kind of know what to expect or what to do and how to treat the players and how to prepare them for a new coach coming in and all that. So, but even after it was done, I was like, man, I'm kind of sad still. It's one of those things like you knew it was going to come to an end. You knew it probably should have came to an end earlier than it actually did. But still, it's tough to swallow, tough to think about the future of where the program's going, because right now, as we're sitting here, we still don't know 100% who the next coach is going to be.
Yeah, we've got a lot of suspicions, and we're tracking that at GoPowercat.com. And blatant ad here, we've got a special up now. Sign up, monthly plan, and you'll get 3 months free. So 1 month paid, 3 months free, get you right up to spring football. Monty, when you played for him, talk about what those days were like and when Kansas State football, got up off the mat, literally from being just a shell of a football program to 93, the Copper Bowl, and then it just really seemed to build a head of steam. In the moment, were you aware of what was happening and how good the program was becoming?
I had no clue, to be honest with you. Coming from Texas, I came in with a bunch of good guys, Chris Candy, Deshaun Fogle, local guy here, just a bunch of there were a bunch of no names at the time, but then after the fact, people knew very well who K-State was, but I had no idea. I knew the team was special, and we had a bunch of guys that didn't like to lose, and they competed. Jamie Mendez, Kenny Mack, Thomas Randolph, those are secondary guys that I happened to play with, Joe G, Joe Gordon. Those guys were confident, and Mario Smith, and we watched those guys practice, and we had that same attitude. And going in, from the Big 8 to the Big 12, things got rolling. And the Big 8 was a little different than the Big 12. It was more smash mouth back then, and now it's kind of sling the ball all over the place. But we had no idea how good we were. But then after the Copper Bowl, the buzz kind of started. And I think we opened a lot of people's eyes to K-State football and exactly what Coach Snyder was doing. And the future looked really bright.
So you get him, Travis, when he comes out of retirement, and he had the fire back. The fire was gone when Marcus, you saw the fire go out. He was just kind of tired, and the 2 back-to-back losing seasons had kind of beaten him up. When did you know, holy crap, the old guy's got it still?
I think probably that sometime during that first winter conditioning or spring conditioning, January, February. I mean, I don't know how many guys are on the team, 100, 110, somewhere around there, but I'm convinced he's had a number. He was like, we're going to kill these guys until we have 80 guys. And I know those 80 guys are going to be awesome guys who are loyal, and they're tough, and they're going to be able to help this ball team win. But he came in and set a tone, really from day one, that this is going to be not how it was in the Prince era. This is going to be tough nose, smash mouth. We're going to work you into the ground, and things are going to be tough, and we're going to do it the hard way, which is usually the right way. So really from day one, he definitely had that energy back, and really throughout, when I left the program in 2012, that fire was still there, and he hired some great assistants around him, some great people around him that were able to keep that fire going. But really from day one when he came back, I think he missed it and he was ready.
Marcus, you had the transition. So kind of take us through that, playing for Coach Snyder and then Prince and the varying styles in practice and the whole thing.
Well, yeah, things are going to change, obviously. Coach Snyder is probably one of the most difficult coaches to play for. And that's not a knock on Coach Snyder. It's just the way he was brought up, what he learned as a coach, under Hayden Fry, when he was at Iowa, in how much effort and time you have to put into to make your craft successful at this level. And so kids nowadays, they just don't get that. They don't understand that. They don't understand the hard work that you have to put in. Yes, they still put in a lot of hard work, but when Monty played, they had 2 days for like 3 weeks, maybe even 3 days. They don't do that kind of stuff anymore. They didn't even do it. When I came into K-State, that's kind of when 2 days went away. We could go 2 a day, 1 a day, 2 a day. So we didn't have consecutive 2 a days. The kids nowadays don't know what it's really like to actually put in all that effort and hard work that Coach Snyder, instills into his program and demands out of his players. And the good thing about that is it weeds out the guys that aren't bought in, that aren't all in, and you don't have to really deal with that as much, or had to deal with that as much at K-State. Well, then Prince comes in, things get a little bit more lackadaisical. Practice go from 2 hours and 46 minutes to 2 hours. And then maybe it's a little bit more up-tempo. You go from full pads to half shells most of the time, and you're not wearing full pads, which is always great. But so the transition for these guys, there's a lot of good things to look forward to, but there's a lot of change. Things are going to change. The only thing that I would ever say to any new coach that is coming into this program, because of what I witness, is do not blackball what was done before in this program. Because if you do that, you will see how fast the team will turn against you as a coach.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, let's kind of go roundtable here. Did the game change a little bit on Bill Snyder? Not the physical X's and O's, but the fact that the NCAA doesn't let you practice anymore, those kind of hours. The NCAA doesn't even let you have the players around that much, which I find bizarre. You're in charge of these guys, but by the way, you can only be with them how many hours a week? Did things change to the point in the context of running a program that Coach Snyder's system just doesn't work quite like it did?
The game definitely changed. I wouldn't say his program doesn't work, but it does kind of handicap and limit what we had as a culture here at K-State. Some programs, kind of like Marcus alluded to earlier, going 2 hours, a little up-tempo, half shell rather than full gear, that's for some programs. But we're a Midwest school. We've always had that persona of we're going to outwork you with less talent per se and find a way to beat you. And when you come in and try to change that, it does affect you to a certain extent. And that's the kind of guys that we bring in, and that's what we win with. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, Coach has been pretty negative per se against some of the rule changes that have happened, whether that's full pads or even the new transfer rule this year, and some of the things that have changed in the last 10, 15 years. Which he has his system and his philosophy that's proven that it works. And then when someone, in this case the NCAA, is telling you can't run your system the way you want to run it and your program, I can see how that's probably pretty frustrating for him. So, and some coaches have been able to adapt. He has done something. Obviously, he's been forced to do some things differently. And so it's unfortunate that that's what the NCAA has done, but everyone's being dealt the same cards. So hard to get too upset. And I just think, obviously he's a put your time in, put your hours in, and that's always been his advantage, which has been hard to do as of late.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of these two guys here, he's a creature of habit. We all know that. And he likes things to be structured to the minute, to the second, every single day of the week. He knows what's going on at those times. The players know what's going on at the times. He adapted well, though, I believe. 2012. They were one game away from probably playing for the national championship. And then you go on, they win a Big 12 championship. So he's adapted well and been able to still get the best out of his team and players. It's just time was catching up. There's no other way to put it. He was 79 years old. He battled through the throat cancer. It was just time. And, unfortunately, it ended the way it did with the season that they had this year. But even if they had a good year, I still think it was time. I've been saying that for the last couple of years. I still think he should have stepped away when the team was still kind of hovering around that 8-win, 9-win seasons and still had some life in it. This season took a lot of life, it felt like, out of the program. But there is some players and some younger players within this program that can, if they instill and band together, can get this thing back going to where it was in the late 90s, early 90s, as they were building the foundation of this program.
Well, let's pick it up there. Monte, you guys watch this football team play, but you see it from a different eye. You're former players. You've been through this. What kind of shape is this program in now as it transitions from Coach Snyder into someone else? I've said, honestly, this was the year. They had to do it or it was going to continue to erode and be a much tougher job on the next guy. What is your assessment of the program right now?
Honestly, I don't think it's as bad as some people might, want it to be or pan it to be. Yeah, we didn't have a winning season. We weren't 500. But kind of Mark said, we got some quality guys that if they come back and they buy into whoever may be the head coach system, we could compete in the Big 12 and have a good season. And I honestly think, with the decision being made that Coach is now retiring, it kind of allows the young people in the program to make a decision like now. So, okay, I'm going to stay aboard. Let's get this thing moving. Whoever comes in, let's right the ship and move forward.
If you're third on the depth chart, your slate's wiped clean, isn't it, Travis?
Absolutely.
Brand new. It's an all new life.
Yep, whole new life. You can go from my true freshman year, I came in at fourth, and at the end of the spring ball, I was first. I mean, a lot of that was because of injury, so I got kind of lucky. But I was there. I survived the winter conditioning terribleness. So, but yeah, I mean, it's it's a fresh slate for everyone. I mean, you look at even some of the QB controversies between Delton and Skyler this year. I mean, those are all wiped clean. There's no the new coach coming in will have no preconceived notions or ideas. It's just going to be a clean slate for both those guys. I thought our defense did some exceptional things this year. I thought Blake Snyder did a really nice job. So I really. I think we're 2 or 3 guys on each side of the ball away from being a 8, 9, 10 win team competing for conference championships. So, and that's what this K-State team always seems to be. In 2012, and we had some pretty good caliber. We had 2 or 3 guys on each side of the ball. We had Harper, we had Klein, we had Lockett. We had Zimmerman on defense, and we're not seeing. We have a bunch of role players, and I'll be the first to admit I was a role player. So, which is totally fine. But you need 2 or 3 stars on each side of the ball, and right now, we've just kind of been missing those. We've had 1 or 2, but we need 2 or 3 or 4 on each side of the ball to really be able to compete for a conference championship.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of Travis, when he first came back, when Coach Snyder came back, I bet their winter conditioning was probably the worst winter conditioning that they ever had at K-State in the 4 years that he was here.
I almost quit every day.
Yeah,
it was bad.
And so the new players probably can expect that from a new coach. He's going to test them. And so they got to understand that, yes, Coach Snyder's program was hard. This winter program this year is probably going to be 10 times harder than what it would have been if Coach Snyder stayed. That's not a knock on Coach or anything, but it's just going to, let these players know we're going to test you. We're going to see which players here are actually here to play and who's tough. Because those there might be some coaches retained. We don't know. It depends on all sorts of things. So they'll be able to fill the new coach in on who the players are, what they've seen, over the course of the years that they've been here. But it's going to be interesting. So, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, it's still a little wishy-washy on who the coach is going to be, whether it's going to be a family tree guy or whether it's going to be somebody off the family tree. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? It's the great unknown. You went through it for 3 years, and we'll kind of get into that. Everyone wants to say, well, it's going to be just like it was the first time around, and we'll talk about that. And right after this break, we're going to get into some Bill Snyder stories and some former coach stories. I know Monte played for Bob Stoops, so that's kind of interesting. That's how old he is. He really is old. I'm Tim Fitzgerald. This is the Powercat podcast, sponsored by both Robbins Motor Company and the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. We'll be right back after this short break.
The Powercat podcast continues shortly.
I'm trying to get a group text in on what everybody wants on the liquor store run, but my phone keeps autocorrecting liquor store to the fridge.
A fridge or the fridge?
The fridge. It just did it again.
Well, the Fridge is more than just a liquor store. The Fridge has over 3,000 wines in stock, the area's largest selection of spirits and craft beers. Plus, they're back-to-back winners of Beverage Dynamics Retailer of the Year.
Oh, I get it. Wow. Smartphone.
Autocorrect your next liquor store visit to the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, 1150 Westport in Manhattan. Online at fridgeliquor.com.
For more than 20 years, there's only been one reliable source for exclusive and unmatched premium K-State sports news content. It's GoPowercat.com. The tradition continues as Tim Fitzgerald, D. Scott Fritchen, and the other Go Powercat sports experts continue their relentless coverage of K-State sports. So make sure you're subscribing to the one and only Go Powercat. Hey, K-State fans, it's time to come home to GoPowercat.com. We now return to the Powercat Podcast.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor and Robbins Motor Company, as we do a special here tonight, the night of Bill Snyder's second retirement, and we assume final retirement from Kansas State. Don't put anything past him.
Never say never.
No, exactly. As Coach Snyder has stepped down as head coach of the Wildcats, 27 seasons over 30 years, 3 in the middle there with Ron Prince. And, let's just start here. I want to get into some of the great Bill Snyder stories, but everyone says it didn't work the first time. Ron Prince was the only choice out there, and that's what any choice will be like. Look, he didn't work. I mean, he wasn't an awful coach. He was an awful person. And any hire And no matter if you're getting Nick Saban or some unknown, you don't know how it's going to work at that particular school in that particular environment. There's so many moving parts. But someone can come in and run with this. It's not going to immediately mean Kansas State's mediocre forever.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, there's hope. And, hopefully we learn from the first time around with the Prince situation. And I think the powers that be understand that whoever comes in, it has to be a special individual because you're following Coach Snyder, no matter who it is. And you have to understand the culture of K-State and K-State football. And our fans, look at Nebraska. How many head coaches have they had?
Right.
Exactly. And actually, nobody's gotten it right yet. I think Scott Frost is on the right track. Former player, great coach, proven outside of Nebraska. He comes home. And who's to say that happens in Manhattan? I don't know, but I know it's doable.
Now, you played for Scott Frost when he was a GA at Kansas State. A lot of people may not even remember that. He was here on the coaching staff. Monty brings up a good point. They kind of sifted through a number of guys. But if you look back through the years now, what Nebraska hired, they didn't hire good fits for their culture.
Correct.
Now, Scott, he's, played at Nebraska, and of course he's going to get the culture.
He's from Nebraska.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to be a K-State guy to get the culture. And what I mean by that is Bill Snyder wasn't a K-State guy. He built this culture, but then we've had other people come in and coach here that weren't K-State guys. Charlie Dickey, came in kind of at a weird time from off the tree and has been a very K-State guy. A person can come in, and I think this is Gene Taylor's biggest emphasis here. You have to understand the people, the place, the unique problems that come with coaching at Kansas State and some of the benefits. And get that right, you're probably going to be off to a good start.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously some of that is bringing in a good staff too. The first year that Prince came here, he had a really good coaching staff that brought a lot of fire into the players, and that helped. But then after that, Prince, it all became about Prince. And when it becomes all about you as a head coach, you will lose this university, you will lose the fan base, you will lose the players, because that's not how – because I don't know what the roster's made up of, but most of them are made up of Kansas kids, your walk-ons, and then the scholarships that you get. So you got to understand what it's like to play at Kansas State, what it's been like for when Monty played, when the foundation that was built. You got to understand how it was built, what those players did to build it. Then you obviously, you got these catbacker tours. Not a lot of universities do those types of things. And so as a coach, you got to be able to go out and do those things and connect with the fans on that level. And you're speaking to a lot of older people that have lived and breathed K-State football, that knew K-State football when it was no wins for years on end, and then to see actually Coach Snyder build this. So, the quote-unquote family. You got to be part of the family, and you got to buy into that family to be successful here. And, he brought up Scott Frost. Scott Frost went into Nebraska knowing that whatever was going on there, he was going to have to tear it down and build it from the ground back up because the foundation was gone. The foundation for Kansas State is still there because Coach Snyder was here. So it's still there. Some coach doesn't need to completely tear it down. They just got to rework it a little bit to more align with how football's played nowadays. And obviously in the recruiting front is probably the biggest.
Travis, what are the big changes that took place while you were in the program were these facilities? They went up around the stadium. I mean, it was an amazing transformation. They tore it down and rebuilt it. It was incredible to watch the process.
Yeah, Monty played the locker room was just the locker room right now for K-State. That's how big your building was?
Pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
What locker room?
That's got to be a huge advantage. It is a huge advantage. I mean, now you've got kind of this, for all the criticism John Currie has gotten, and some of it very deserved, that he forced Bill Snyder to do that. Bill Snyder did not want that facility. He didn't want change. And now it really helps whomever is coming in, and it helps bring in a good candidate. That's a nice football facility.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. Is who we bring in. They know as long as they can win some ball games and put a good staff together, they have the facilities in place that they're going to be able to go out and sit in kids' living rooms and sell Kansas State and sell the facilities, and at least have a chance. I mean, that's kids they're 17, 18 years old making very big life decisions that, who knows what's going through their head. But to be able to have those facilities behind you, and like you said, John Curry, I mean, I have when I hear the negative things that are said about him, and he was always good to me and my family, so I always enjoyed him. And he did a lot for this university. I just don't think he quite fit into Manhattan, Kansas. He's a West Coast, East Coast guy, which is not right or wrong. That's just who he is. And that's where I think Gene Taylor's much more. I mean, I love visiting with Gene Taylor. He just seems like an old ball coach and an old ball player. And it's like you're just, talking to sitting with your good friend on the couch watching a K-State football game. So I think he fits the athletic department much better. And obviously he's got a big week, 2 weeks, month ahead with this decision, probably his biggest hire of his career. So I'm excited to see what he does. The facilities are in place. Now we just got to put a good leader into that position and watch the foundation that's been set by Bill Snyder over the last 30 years, launch and take flight and really continue off to even better things.
Okay, let's get into the good stuff. Monte Spiller. Give me a really good Bill Snyder story.
Man, there's so many of them. Coach, I play defense, and so a lot of people don't know. Coach Snyder, he's involved with everything, but he's more of an offensive coach than a defensive coach. And the time I played, I was fortunate enough. I had Bob Stoops, Mike Stoops, Brent Venables was here, Coach Levitt was here, Coach Mo, forever guy, he was here, and a couple of other coaches. And I noticed Coach walking around, and in between stations, some of the defensive guys was kind of jacking around a little bit, and shooting water on each other, and we were over at the grass fields, and Coach walks over and whispers something into Coach Stoops' ear, and so all of a sudden the horn blows and we get back in the drills, and the tempo from laid back to enjoying ourselves went from that to basically, all right, if you screw up, you know what. And I asked Coach Stoops, what did he say to you? And Coach Stoops told me, if I told you, I'm going to have to send you home and take your scholarship away. So we kind of left it at that. But Coach Snyder's one of those guys, very, very, I'd say passive, but demands respect. He don't have to yell a whole lot, and he'll give you a look, and you knew, if he gave you a look, get right. So and there's a lot more stories I can tell you too, but I'm gonna let these young guys kind of jump in.
This is also a PG podcast. The older Bill Snyder, was he more mellow maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we used to hear horror stories, during camp. Guys from the 90s would come back and talk to us, give us a little pep talk, and they used to just tell us horror stories and be like, man, we got it pretty good. We should quit complaining. So, but he definitely mellowed out a little bit, but I mean, I still have to go back to that first, even that first spring ball. I mean, that my freshman season, we go 5-7, I think. Not a very good program. And so that first spring ball, I mean, it was. You would have thought we were a bunch of junior high girls out there. The way Coach Snyder. He didn't talk down to us, but just the way he would approach it after a practice, like, we felt like, we had a pretty good practice, and like, just not a positive thing to say, which is, him pretty normal for him. So, and, looking back, once we got to 2011, 2012, and we figured out what good football was, it's like, man, this guy was right. We were not very good just because we could, line up and not jump off sides. We thought we were pretty cool. So, but no, he's probably my favorite. One of my favorite stories with Coach Snyder that involves me is, I was a senior. I think might have even been bowl prep. It was pretty late into our senior year, and me and Braden Wilson were stretching. We were the leaders of the stretch group, and Braden was about as hardworking and tough as they come. And practice, run through the brick wall. He'd tell you to line up 2 brick walls. So, I'm a senior. I'm like, Coach, I've proven to you time and time again on Saturdays I can block a middle linebacker. Why do I have to run through a middle linebacker on a Tuesday? And so me and him we didn't see eye to eye on everything. And so we're in the stretch circle, and he just comes over to me and Braden. He just looks at Braden and goes, Braden, you going to get Tannahill to work hard today? And walked away. That was it. With me in earshot. And I'm like, Coach, I've been your starter for 3 years. I've made some plays for you, man. Oh, and so he that was his way of motivating me for that day, which he's a master motivator. He knows what gets under your skin, and I'm fairly certain I had a pretty good practice that day.
Always unfulfilled expectations, weren't they?
Yeah.
Nothing was ever quite good enough, which is a good trait if you're a football coach.
Yeah, and, for Coach Snyder, when you're at practice, he never talks. The only thing he talks to is his little silver recorder. If I could get my hands on those recorders to actually see what he said, those would be gold mines. You could write so many books off just probably that recorder. Now, all of them probably wouldn't be good, and you always knew if you did something wrong, because if you missed a block or missed a pass and you turn around and you saw Coach Snyder and you saw his hand come up and onto the recorder, you knew he was probably talking about you. So after the 2003 Big 12 championship year, I was going into my redshirt freshman year, so I was going to be playing special teams at least. And, Elle had graduated, so Dylan was going to be our starting quarterback. Well, Dylan was also the starting holder the year before, and Coach doesn't like to have his starting quarterback be the starting holder. So they came up to me and was like, hey, you're going to do this. I'm like, okay. So we go over to the first practice, first day of two-a-days. Joe Ream's the kicker. Obviously, he's one of the best kickers in K-State history. And I couldn't do it to save my life. And I was dropping everything, couldn't figure out how to do it. And it's not like I had pretty good hands, so it's just a different type of trait you have to learn or skill you have to learn to be a holder. And I come off, and I'm so mad. And I throw the ball down. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I just yell, I'm not doing this.
I can hear him say
not doing it. I can't do it. He pulls me. He's like, son, come here. Pulls me over and goes, you're going to do it. Figure it out. Ever since then, I was a holder for 4 years. I figured it out. So, it's just not a lot of motivation there. Just, hey, you're doing this. Figure it out. And that's something you would do. There's, we can get into the personal side of this, of Coach Snyder if you want to do that now or if you want to go into it later. He was always somebody that cared for his players. It didn't matter what was going on in your life. If there was something that you needed to talk to him about, you could always go into his office. Better check with Joanne first to make sure that he's available or not doing something, sleeping. I don't know what he would be doing. But
he actually does do that.
Yeah, in his office he does, because that's the only place where he would be most of the time. So, I left K-State. Obviously, I graduated K-State in 2007, and, I didn't have Coach Snyder for the last 2 years. Hadn't seen or really spoken to him for a long time. About 4 or 5 years ago, my sister passed away, and I got a handwritten letter from Coach Snyder about my sister. How he found out my sister passed away, I have no idea. I don't know if it somehow got back to him through Sean, or, if they check the news to see if there's anything that goes on with former players, families within that. But there's little things like that he just reaches back out to you. Just recently, in the last couple of years, I got a picture frame sent to me. It said, hey, Marcus, this was up in the office, and I don't know if it was the old veneer before they built a new one. Thought you'd like to have it. It was me walking down on senior day. Even though he wasn't the coach at the time, he still sent it to me. So, he still cares for you even after you're gone. And that's one thing that you don't see a lot from coaches. Most players go away. Coaches, they'll say hi to you if you come around, but they don't reach out to you to see how you're doing, or if something goes wrong with you and your family, reach out to you to make sure that everything's okay. If there's anything you need from him, let him know.
Tough to play for, but it was never a football factory, was it? He wanted to win, but at the end of the day, he wanted you to be a good person.
No, I agree 100%. Even from the recruiting process, I remember when Coach recruited me, and the first time he came to my home, and Dana Demo recruited the Dallas area, so Dana came to my high school, and he was looking at myself and another guy from my high school the first time, and then as he got closer, Coach Snyder came back, and it's one of those things where it came between Texas Tech, K-State, and Colorado. And I asked my mom, I said, what do you think? She goes, I want you to go to K-State. And I kind of basically asked her why. And she goes, Coach Snyder, I'm impressed with him. And he maybe said 3 words about football the entire time he sat on my couch, and everything else is about becoming a man and being a better person. And she goes, that left a lasting impression on her. And, when mama speak, I listen. And she made the right choice for me, and obviously I had something to do with it as well, but it definitely was the right choice.
No matter how hard it is to play for Bill Snyder, and we know it's hard. The demands in time and energy and classroom work. He doesn't let you up off the mat on that one either. At the end of the day, as you get further away from your career, and Tannahill, you're the youngest guy here in this little round table, you get it, don't you? Everything you went through kind of gets into perspective as you get older, and you're like, oh, yeah, I get this now. And it all, no matter what your profession is, it pays off.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think probably the biggest, it might take me 2, 3, 4 years after graduating when I figured it was the idea that Coach Snyder, no matter what happened on the field, we were going to work hard. And that was the expectation, no matter what, whether we won 2 games or 10 games, we were going to work hard. And as you transition into life, that's kind of what you start to realize. Like, you have to, if you even want a fighting chance to be successful in the business world, corporate world, with your spouse, anything, you have to work hard. And so that really changed my, looking back, like, man, Coach knew that this life, it's hard work. And just because you work hard doesn't guarantee you your success. And you have to have some other, traits and attributes that go into that. But you don't even have a chance if you don't know how to work hard. So really, he has probably taught, 100 guys, or 50, 30, 40 guys per senior class per year, for the last 27 years. I mean, he's had an impact on so many guys who will then, relay that message to our sons and daughters, and just the amount of impact he's had on how to create, turning 18-year-old immature boys into 22-year-old men by the time they're out of there. It's really been remarkable.
Just keep grinding. That's, from the outside perspective, I've learned that from him. You just keep going, no matter
that's all you can do.
What's happening. You just keep going. Well, I'm Tim Fitzgerald. This is the Powercat Podcast. We're going to take one more small break here with our player panel, Marcus Watts, Travis Tannahill, and Monte Spiller, here on the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fred's Wholesale Liquor and Robbins Motor Company.
The gang will return with more of the Powercat Podcast.
Robbins Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat offers a wide selection of new and used cars, trucks, and SUVs at competitive prices in the Manhattan, Topeka, Emporia, and Junction City, Kansas areas. Be sure to check out Robbins' new vehicle inventory, where you will find the most popular models from iconic brands such as Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Or if you're looking to save by purchasing a pre-owned vehicle, Robbins has an updated stock of used cars in excellent condition. No matter what you are looking for, the team at Robbins Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat will help you get behind the wheel of your dream car. And K-State fans, visit the Robbins location on Anderson Avenue in Manhattan for an exciting test drive. It's the Robbins Motor Company, proud winners of the 2018 Customer First Award for Excellence, and title sponsor of the Powercat Pregame Podcast.
Back to Fitz on the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
Welcome to this special edition of the Powercat Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald with a player panel, so to speak. Marcus Watts, Travis Tannahill, and Monte Spiller as we cover Snyder 1.0, Snyder 2.0, and Snyder Middle. You're Snyder Middle, Marcus Watts.
Snyder Middle and end.
And Ron Prince. But we don't really like to say that. This is the most the words Ron Prince have been spoken in this office in a long time.
Yeah.
Except on the podcast when you used to get questions all the time.
When I used to get questions, but I don't do the podcast anymore, so questions.
Yeah, we fired you.
Anymore.
We fired you.
I fired myself.
Exactly, you did. We're going to bring this to a little conclusion here, and I just kind of want some final thoughts from you guys. This has been a weird day. It's been a weird day for me. I knew it was coming. I had stuff written. We had stuff prepared. Riley had the retirement story written, and we put it out on the site. And still, Marcus alluded to this. It's melancholy, man. I thought it was time. I don't know if we all agreed on that, but it felt like it was time. It just the program needed to make the transition, and still, you're kind of sick about it. Yeah. And you're kind of sick that it went down this way. I wanted him to go out in 2012, Travis, or 13 or 14 with Lockett, and just, kind of on an up note. And if you look from 14, it started tracking down, and it's kind of unwound. But, Monty, let's just start with you. Your final thoughts on Bill Snyder, what he's meant to you, and what are your thoughts at this time?
as far as a coach, he's a Hall of Famer, obviously, and I feel fortunate and blessed to be a part of the program and be part of the era that kind of started it. It was one of those things where a lot of people ask me, man, what was it like? And it's so many stories, but kind of like you just alluded to, when the news broke and I saw the feeds coming up everywhere, and I felt like it was time too, and I think for Coach's sake, because he deserves to go out on top in my opinion, but it was time. But it's still kind of weird. Tomorrow morning I'm gonna wake up and I see stories and it's like it's gonna be a reality. And I think not really fear, but anxious to see what happens next. But I hope Coach understands and knows that he's loved in Manhattan, Kansas, the state of Kansas. In the college football world, he's done so much. But kind of what Tannahill said earlier, he's taught me so much as a man. The work I do day to day as a father, a husband, the things I do in the community, he instilled in me that hard work does pay off. And looking back on it, man, those 3-hour practices, those 8 and 8s, those detailed itineraries when you're traveling, and he'll make you think you have time off. In reality, you have 30 minutes off over the weekend. You look back and you're thankful for it. So, the man is loved on so many levels, but I'm fortunate to be part of it and wouldn't change a thing.
Travis, and final thoughts from you.
Yeah, very similar feelings. It's still just kind of surreal. I also think it was time. I thought maybe it was even, could have been hindsight's 2020, but maybe a year late. But it's just so hard for him, and I still think he can coach. I still think he can surround himself with a good group of people. But it's just got to be so hard for a 79-year-old man to relate to a 17-year-old kid. And that's not any knock against him. That's just the way the world works.
It's reality.
And as much you can only take, C players to B players or A- players, and we need some more A players out there. So, unfortunately, that's the reality. And I think he showed a lot to me stepping down, because I do think he deep down, these head coaches, to be successful in that industry, they have to be almost overly confident. They have to believe they can do it and they're the best person for the job. And he is wise enough to listen to some trusted people around him and say, you know what, maybe I'm not the best for this job anymore, and I love this university enough that I'm going to step down, even though he might think that he's still the best for the job. So I really enjoyed today. Out on social media, there was the Thanks Bill kind of hashtag going around, seeing a bunch of my former players speak up, seeing a bunch of fans speak up, and just telling stories and memories of the 3 decades that he's been here. It's been remarkable. It's been a fun ride. I was very thankful and very blessed to be a part of it for 4 years, and wouldn't change it for the world, and made some of my best friends. So I owe him the reason I'm living in Manhattan, Kansas today. So I owe him a lot, and it's been a fun ride, but definitely excited and optimistic for the next chapter for Kansas State football.
And Marcus?
Yeah, kind of hard to follow what these guys said. They've pretty much touched all the points. I thank Coach Snyder to all be, he gave me a chance from, small town in Kansas, wasn't highly recruited, and he gave me an opportunity, which he's done for a lot of players in Kansas, and even, like a Dalton Reisner out of Colorado. Small school, gave him a chance, believed in him, and then instilled the work ethic that I needed to be able to be successful at the level. He's going to be missed, that's for sure. He's somebody that's meant a lot to this university. Manhattan would not be what it is today if it wasn't for Coach Snyder. The state of Kansas wouldn't have some of the things that it has if it weren't for Coach Snyder. A lot of the stuff he has done behind the scenes that aren't football related with the leadership. K-State has one of the best leadership programs in the country, and a lot of that has to do with Coach Snyder. They had he donated a lot of money to build up the equestrian thing here, and now they don't have it anymore. But there's just so many things. He's touched so many people's lives in ways that he probably doesn't even really know. Just by what he did at Kansas State and the success that he brought to this university. So, obviously he's 79, his time's up. We know that there's no chance for him to come back like the first time. There was always that chance. And so it's kind of a sad day, but it's also a day that, people can look back and celebrate what he has actually accomplished over the last 30 years.
30 years and 2 days since he was announced as Kansas State's football coach. Nobody knew who Bill Snyder was, and now the whole world of college football knows Bill Snyder's name. Guys, thanks a lot. This was great. We could have gone on a lot longer, but we're actually doing this kind of late at night, and you all have regular jobs. I don't. I have this show around here.
You got to go see Big Hero 6 tomorrow.
Yeah, I've got a little radiation in the morning, so I got that booked. But let's try to do something like this again. This was fun. It's fun. This is the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by The Fridge, Robbins Motor, and, of course, we will be back this week with our regular podcast. Right, Riley Gates? Mm-hmm. He said, mm-hmm. We'll talk to you later.
Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.